again. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to The Outsiders. I'm your host, Sean Sims, and I've got some information and news for you all today, giving it to you, bringing it to you as only The Outsiders can do. And we have a situation. What we have here is a situation. We have a situation where you have a person backstabbing Brandon Scott, Slim Shady, as he's known on The Outsiders, who's in a lot of trouble. He's in deep doo-doo, and he's getting desperate. July 13th, there was a hearing. I was there. I was there at the hearing. I was with Giovanni Patterson. He was there as well. Ripsy Morgan was with us for a little bit as well. We were there at the hearing, and I don't know what's going on, but somehow you just can't get away from it. You can't get away from the peroxide. You can't get away from the pearls. She was there at City Hall at the hearing. Shantay Jackson. Wow. I mean, just go away, lady. June 30th, just when you thought the water was safe, the City Hall was safe, just when you thought this disaster of a director from MONSE is gone, you don't have to worry about seeing her or hearing from her. She's back. It was an op-ed in the Baltimore Sun, and it's just getting to a point where it's like, wow, go already. So I'm going to go over that op-ed in the Baltimore Sun, and so you can hear what was said. So,
Terry,
here we go.
Following the mass shooting that took place at Brooklyn homes on July 2nd, I was overcome by a flurry of emotions that started with disbelief, frustration, and sadness. There was, and continues to be, a lot to process. As someone who has called Baltimore home my entire life and has devoted my career to public safety for our residents.
Yeah, you really did a bang-up job with the public safety part, Shantay. Bang-up job. I'll continue. This is the op-ed in the Baltimore Sun that came out, I believe, yesterday, but I'll continue.
This event broke my heart. This was the largest mass shooting in over a decade, and doesn't just...
Stop. First of all, Shantay, this is not only the biggest mass shooting, largest mass shooting in over a decade. This is the biggest mass shooting, young lady, in the history of the city. So don't try to downplay the horrific event or just saying, oh, just a decade. No. Let me go ahead and continue with Shantay's op-ed.
Impact Brooklyn homes. It alters the very fabric of our city. Our city lost 2 young people. Aaliyah Gonzalez and Kylai Spe-
No, let me explain. The city had two young people who were at a block party in Baltimore City who were murdered. Their lives weren't just lost. They were murdered at a block party. Their lives were taken. Okay, so let's not, again, just downplay things. So let's go on. Let's go on with this.
Acme, who had their futures ahead of them. Nothing is more painful than knowing that their families, friends, and community will never get to see them reach the promise of their life's potential. Through the immense efforts of our local medical institutions and first responders, 28 other victims were given the chance to see another day, though their lives will forever be changed.
Now, yes, the medical people did a fantastic job, jumped in there, and I believe they should get huge kudos for what they did.
In the midst of this trauma, and a clear admission by the Baltimore Police Department that there was a breakdown in communications and operations by officers in the Southern District.
Oh, I'm going to get to that in just a little bit. We'll just finish up with this op-ed by Shantay, and I'm going to get to all of that.
Council members Isaac Yitzi Schleifer and Eric Costello used a city council hearing on July 13 to weaponize this horrific incident and advance the Fox 45 narrative of vilifying Safe Streets community violence intervention workers.
No, that is not what happened, Shantay. As far as I'm concerned, that's a bald-faced lie. That is not what happened. Okay, I was there. They were asking questions, the other council members who were of African descent, they were asking some very poignant questions as well. Not as much as they should have. I think they should have dug more into that situation, but it seemed as though that they were so unprepared, MONSE was so unprepared, the people didn't even look at the input information in Apricot. Didn't even look at the information, didn't even go over it fully after the biggest mass shooting in history of the city. So serious questions arise out of that. So let's continue.
While taking thousands of dollars in political donations from members of the Smith family that owns Fox 45's parent company, Sinclair Broadcast Group. While the public and their fellow council members...
Whoa, wait. So they're the only members who take donations from the Smith family? They're the only members of the city council who do? Sure, right, Shantay. Okay, let's continue.
We're calling into question the equity of police response times to calls for service. Schleifer and Costello brushed off legitimate concerns about whether or not police would have had the same reaction if the Brooklyn Day block party took place in Federal Hill, a neighborhood that Costello represents, in favor of demanding why information on mediations conducted by Safe Streets, who had staff on the scene prior to the mass shooting, wasn't being used in a police investigation.
That's a good question. You got a problem with questions, Shantay? You particularly have a problem with people who are asking that's a good question. And there were questions that were asked were very good questions. So you got a problem with that?
In asking that question, these two white council members misconstrued the efficacy and role of community...
Whoa, here we go. White? So you have an issue that a white council person asked a white director. Yeah, that's right. Stephanie Mavronis is a Caucasian young lady. And that's right. Oh yeah, that's right. So is Richard Worley. He's a Caucasian man. So you have two Caucasian people that she's claiming, Eric Costello and Yitzi Schleifer, that they're white. Doesn't make any sense. See, this is nonsensical. So let's go on. Let's continue.
violence intervention work being done in some of the city's Black communities. As someone who is intimately familiar with this work, I feel the need to set the record straight. Safe Streets staff are not law enforcement personnel. They are credible messengers who depend on relationships with and in the neighborhoods.
Neither are the Guardian Angels. Neither are other organizations that work with folks who are on the streets or people who are getting out of prison doing time, and Marlo Hargrove and his organization. There are other organizations that are out there that don't get millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and tens of millions of dollars. They don't get anything. And their people are known. They're not running and hiding. We can't let you know who they are. Bravo, Sierra. Let's continue.
They serve to mediate conflicts among high-risk community members and change cultural norms around the communal acceptability of gun violence. This work follows the internationally recognized Cure Violence model that expressly states
that's failing. The model sucks. Okay, it's failing. It shows it doesn't work. Look it up. Look at the model. Look at what's going on here in the city. Just use Baltimore as an example. With the violence, the second most criminally violent city in the country. Number 17 on the planet. So your system, it sucks. It doesn't work. So let's go on. Let's go on to hear what else Shantay has to say.
States that violence interrupters and other staff must remain independent in order to maintain the credibility needed to work those at highest risk. This model has been validated through rigorous research from Daniel Webster of the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School.
Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School, yeah, right. Sure. Do we have any other entities or agencies that have looked at the model? Because what I've heard and seen of it, the model is no good. It's Scheiße. That's German for manure. Let's continue.
School of Public Health Center for Gun Violence Solutions, which found that when Safe Streets is properly implemented and funded, it can significantly reduce homicides and non-fatal shootings.
Has it significantly reduced homicides and non-fatal shootings throughout the city? Has it done that? No. You had the Brooklyn mass shooting. You have high crime rates. Number 2 in the country for criminal violence. So let's continue, because I don't know what this young lady is talking about. She must be delusional. Let's go on.
In the most underserved neighborhoods. Expecting Safe Streets to share sensitive public health information with the police ignores the reality that doing so would...
Public health information? You mean if somebody has a weapon or not? They can't share that information because that's public health? This is a joke. The Baltimore Sun printed this nonsense? That's your rap. That's what you're going to roll with. That's what you're going to roll with, Baltimore Sun. You're going to roll with that. Okay. Obviously, the mayor pulled some strings to get this crap put in the Baltimore Sun. But let's continue. There's more.
Would compromise the relationships that these workers depend on to conduct successful mediations and put their own safety at risk, particularly given a long-standing mistrust of the police in Black communities.
Successful mediations. Okay, so the 5 interactions that you had on July the 1st, those 5 interactions, I guess the interactions were so successful that the rest of the night went free and clear of any wrongdoing or shooting. Oh, no, that's right, that didn't happen. Yeah, that's right. And then there's an 80% chance that they had weapons on them as well. So, wow, that model really worked that day. No, it didn't work. So let's continue. Let's continue.
Safe Streets was on the ground after the event, supporting victims and helping residents deal with trauma even in the midst of dealing with their own trauma. They are members of the...
So let me get this straight. First, Safe Streets had left. Okay, so Safe Streets left after 5 incidences, and their weapons, and 80% chance of there being weapons, 5 incidences, that's a possibility of what, 4? At least 4 weapons. And if both parties involved in the incident had a weapon, you can have a possibility of a max of 8 weapons between the 5 incidences. And so things went, well, no. Let's continue. The mediations were, well, obviously the mediations more than likely did not go well, because there's a high probability that out of those 5 incidences that something blew up even worse. Out of those 5 incidences that the mass shooting took place because of maybe one of those incidences. But the fact still remains, there were 5 incidences. There was an 80% chance of weapons between those 5 incidences. And there was a mass shooting that happened after. And then the Safe Streets workers, they returned after the shooting, after the damage was done, then they returned to offer help. That was good of them to return to offer help. But where were they in the interim time between the 5 incidences and then the mass shooting? They seemed to disappear. You notice that?
This community, too. The reality is that community violence intervention workers help communities be and feel safe. Blaming them for failures that BPD publicly...
Stop. The citizens of Baltimore, Shantay, do not feel safe. Safe Streets does not make people feel safe. Having police presence, having a low crime rate, having the protocol with the police department and community organizations, which should have a strong bond between the community organizations and the police department so that they know and understand what is going on. Those are the things that make citizens feel safe. So now, Shantay, you're speaking for the citizens of Baltimore City? Completely delusional. Let's go on. There's a little bit more left of this ridiculousness.
Accepted responsibility for willfully ignores the fact that Safe Streets and other community violence interruption workers are not a substitute for good, proactive law enforcement, nor are they government employees. They have been in Brooklyn homes helping their community heal.
You're right. They're not a substitute for a properly operating police department which is engaged with the community, which is engaged with the citizenry. No, they are not. Yet, they get tens of millions of dollars. While the police department, let's pull money away from them, because that's what backstabbing Brandon wanted to do. And even 1 year did. Now he's got another way to pull money away from them with this Safe Streets and MONSE business. Let's finish up with Shantay.
Giving out necessities to residents impacted by this event and showing up every day for their fellow neighbors. I can't say the same of Costello and Schleifer. Shantay Jackson, Twitter. @Jackson527, most recently served as director of the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and...
Yeah, and she's not there anymore because Brandon kicked her butt out. And then they came up with this cover for her to say that she's leaving this cushy $223,000 a year gig on her own, just out of nowhere. Right, sure. Don't believe that. Now, who was at the hearing? My notes fell down. Who was at the hearing? Now, BPD Acting Commissioner Worley, Richard Worley, was at the hearing July 13th. MONSE's acting director, let's do acting and acting, okay. Stephanie Marvonis was there at the hearing July 13th. Housing Authority of Baltimore City, Janet Abrams, President and CEO, was there at the hearing, and Department of Transportation, Corinne Johnson. I'm Director of the Department of Transportation. Talking about trees and abandoned cars and shrubbery and security cameras being blocked and permit issues, stuff like that. But Department of Transportation, I'm going to take them, I'm just going to put an X right there because, I mean, they had nothing to do, any responsibilities with what happened. But the backstabbing Brandon, and I warned you, I said, do not get close to him. He will stab you in the back. He stabbed the citizens of Baltimore City in the back with that BGE backdoor conduit deal to give them control over the city's conduit. Now look at the mess that's going on, and you got Thuru suing them, and I don't know how many other lawsuits, and you got other neighborhoods joining in, and I'm sure there's more to come. But what he did, what backstabbing Brandon did, is he took the black woman, Janet Abraham took her and recently threw her under the bus. But the two Caucasian folk, that is Richard Worley and Stephanie Marvonis, no, he didn't go and say that they had responsibilities and really go and throw them under the bus. He did that with the black woman, Janet Abraham. He put it on her. Wow. And then another black woman, he gave her the boot to get out. And that is Shantay Jackson, who was replaced by a Caucasian woman, a white woman. And she's talking about Eric Costello and Isaac Schleifer and bringing up race. See, that's funny. See, I just want you all to hear, just take a quick little listen at Brandon, backstabbing Brandon at work.
May have looked like. Mayor Scott calling for more details from the agency running the Brooklyn Homes housing development.
The folks that actually are responsible for that housing development should have known.
How did the Brooklyn Day block party go undetected this year, especially after more than 20 years of holding the event?
Now that's a lot of time holding the event, and sure, there should be some responsibility taken with Janet Abraham, I should say. Stephanie Marvonis, on the other hand, who's the acting director of MONSE. What do? Safe Streets is under MONSE. What happened with that? What happened with him saying, you know what? Stephanie Marvonis, maybe not mentioning her name, but just saying MONSE, Safe Streets particularly, they were had responsibility, or some responsibility of what happened that evening, because they didn't report the weapons to the police. Why weren't they told about the weapons? And speaking of the police, I'm going to get to that in just a little bit. But Marvonis, Stephanie Marvonis, I should say, of MONSE, let's hear what she had to say July 13th at the hearing.
I would offer a statistic that we've shared publicly related to this program is that in anywhere up to 80% of the incidents and individuals that Safe Streets workers on a given night are putting themselves in front of, there is either a weapon present or a concealed weapon or a suspected weapon. Whoa,
really? She just said it. I was there. So what happened at that point? Does backstabbing Brandon say anything about Safe Streets and how they fumbled the ball, dropped the ball? No, nothing. See, so this ridiculousness that's going on with Shantay Jackson and her op-ed and race, I don't know. Who should have a spotlight on them regarding race? The mayor? You have a black police commissioner who's left, and he put a Caucasian male in without a search, without doing what Mayor Bowser did in DC, had a search and found someone, and found Police Chief Smith, a nomination, hopefully soon to be Police Chief Smith, nominated Smith. But no, Brandon, he did his own thing. So you have that part that's going on, and I want to get to the person at hand. I really needs to have more focus on him because this is so important, and that is Mr. Worley. Here's a hearing and what he had to say.
Hey, well, maybe I'll ask the question and you can just clarify for me. When was the first call that we received about this party?
About the party itself was around 9:20.
9:20 a.m.
9:20 p.m. said loud kids, but there were calls during the...
Stop. No, that is not true, Richard Worley. At 6:57 p.m. on July the 1st, it has details of a complaint. He even put it up at the hearing in City Hall so you can plainly see. 6:57 p.m., Richard Worley, it says details of complaint. It's Brooklyn Day. Oh, whoa. It's Brooklyn Day at 6:57 p.m.? No, that's not when you, no, that's not true. It's Brooklyn Day and 2 vehicles driving reckless. Police. This is their report. So they knew about Brooklyn Day at 6:57 p.m. This is an issue. Let's continue just a little bit to see what else Mr. Worley has to say.
Today, for different incidents. There was a call at 8:17 for an individual driving under the influence, and that one was abated with an arrest. The officer arrested someone on Duane Avenue, which is, if you saw the graph, it's about about a third of a mile from where the actual incident occurred. But the main calls usually started around 9:20, then 9:40.
Got it. And when that...
Wait, stop. Okay, 9:21. I'm going to be precise. This is their graph that the police had up. 9:21 p.m. Loud kids at location, which was approximately 459 feet from the 800 block of Gretna Court where the mass shooting took place. Now it says here no police services required at 9:21 p.m. Now at 9:40 p.m. it lists. Now again, I have to point this out. This was on their board. This is what Richard Worley put up at City Hall. 9:40 p.m. Details of complaint. Hundreds of individuals armed with guns and knives. That's what it said. Not one, not 5 incidences that were broken up, not a few people, hundreds of individuals armed with guns and knives. And then after that, on their report, it says, no police services required. Are you kidding me? Are you serious? Are you out of your mind? You're talking about hundreds of people being reported. 9:40 p.m. Hundreds of individuals armed with guns and knives. And it says that your report says no police service required. And no one's talking about this. And they were there. The press was there. They had it right up there and they saw it just like I did. And it's not mentioned in the media. I haven't heard it. If I have, then I stand corrected. But this is what was said. So what kind of protocol happened?